So today we're talking a lot about 3D printing applications in support of the COVID-19 containment effort. I'm Tim Newton, and I'm going to introduce here Rob Storleen. Rob's has a very extensive background in engineering and additive manufacturing. He started his career as a field service engineer working on 2D printing equipment for the photography industry. From there, he transitioned and spent 11 years at a major 3D printing manufacturer before joining us about 3 years ago. Today, he leads our additive manufacturing application engineering team, and he is an awesome resource. I joke, but Rob is kind of like the encyclopedia of 3D printing. He frequently helps clients find new and clever ways to design their parts in order to realize the benefits of 3D printing.
Wow, thanks, Tim, for that intro.
You bet, Rob.
So this is Tim Newton. He's our product portfolio manager here at Hockridge Systems. He holds a degree in mechanical engineering from North Dakota State. He also holds the Elite AE certification from SolidWorks, which is the highest level of certification they offer. He's been involved with SolidWorks design, manufacturing for over 19 years. And I know from my experience, he's got a real passion for design and curiosity in additive manufacturing and design. You've probably seen some of his YouTube videos out there, and some of them are pretty entertaining. Just kind of like the video you watched warming up here. And when I see that, I keep thinking about Mr. Bill. I just wanted to yell out, "Oh no!" So it's a fun video.
Rob, that's a cool background you're in. Can you tell us about your location right now? That looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm at our office here in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. I'm in our additive manufacturing lab. So within this room, we have an HP 4200 printer along with the processing station. I've also got an HP 580 printer in this room, along with Markforged X7, a metal X with the wash station and the sintering oven. So this is where we'll do demos, we'll build benchmarks, we'll play in here. It's kind of a working lab for demos and stuff.
Pretty cool spot, and we'll tell you a little bit more about those 3D printing labs coming up real quick here. So a fast agenda for today's presentation. We're already halfway through the introduction. We've got a section that covers some of the efforts that we've been working on over here, as well as some of the efforts that our partners have been working on. And then finally, some ways that you can get involved. Maybe you have a 3D printer, or maybe you're into design. We've got some links for you to jump in and join the effort. A little bit about who Rob and I work for. We work for a company called Hockridge Systems. And we started business as a SolidWorks 3D CAD vendor. As the SolidWorks product line grew from CAD into things like simulation and file management tools with the PDM tool set, or even electrical and manufacturing tools today, it's really grown. We started taking on other complementary tools, such as the HP 3D printers or the Markforged 3D printers. We added a scanning company called Artec 3D, as well as Hexagon, which creates metrology devices like their touch probes that you see in lots of different quality groups. And then we added a few 3D printing additional tools like Materialize. It creates some software that helps companies create 3D prints more efficiently, as well as post-process technologies that helps companies post-process their 3D prints faster and better than ever. Quick snapshot of North America. The areas in blue are areas where we're doing business. Today, we're up to about 230 employees with 21 offices all over that territory. Rob and I are out of the Minneapolis office, but we have coworkers all the way across Canada, the Pacific Northwest, Nevada, a bunch in California. We're really spread out, but very well connected. We have 6 of these digital manufacturing showrooms like Rob is standing in here. And although we'd love to invite you out right now, it may not be a possibility, but we can do things virtually. So don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to talk about the technologies that we offer and how it could address your business needs. So the first piece of content I wanted to share with these face mask frames. Rob, I see these all over the news. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the efforts that we've been making on these?
Yeah, this is probably the most common one that you've been seeing around the internet and around the news media and stuff. When we started with this whole COVID thing, we reached out to a lot of our local customers and offered our assistance if there was stuff that they needed. We had a bunch of them come to us. These were manufacturers, they were medical facilities, they were hospitals, all types of different groups of people were coming to us and we were reaching out to them. This mask is probably the most common one that you see out there. It's an interesting one. A story close to home here is we've got a customer over in Wisconsin. They were making these on their HP printers. They were running over capacity, unable to produce what they were getting requests for. Shows you how valuable these are to the medical industry. So they reached out to us and asked if we could help pick up some production. So we ran a couple of builds on our 4200 for them to kind of catch them up and fill out their load a little bit. We produced 150 of these face shields over the weekend, delivered them to them on a Monday morning. It was kind of funny. It was like this little seedy handoff. I met him partway at a McDonald's parking lot. We opened the trunk. He picks a box out, puts it in his trunk. We close the lids and we both drive on our way. That's how we end up doing business today.
No handshakes, Rob. You didn't get let in through the front door.
No handshakes, no hugs, no nothing. It was just here's this box and we're going. So they've basically distributed, they told me, over 500 of these frames and 2,500 of the clear shields to local hospitals, nursing homes, medical facilities throughout western Wisconsin and eastern Minnesota. So this is a fantastic, application for us because we can build quantities like this fairly quickly and we can distribute them locally. We don't have to wait for this stuff to be shipped in.
And that's just, this region we're in here, right? We had similar efforts in the Pacific Northwest as well as in California, right?
Exactly. That top middle picture there is about 300 shields. Those are printed in the West Coast in our California office, distributed locally there. I believe the picture on the right is from just a small sample of what they've been printing up in the Pacific Northwest at our office there. So it's nice because it's regional distribution. We're not having to bring these all into a factory, pump them out. We can do this locally and get them in the hands of the people that need them very quickly.
Pretty cool stuff. Another application we've seen are these mask straps. Can you tell us about what these are used for?
Yeah, when you think about it, here's a very simple part, very simple application with a lot of value to it. If you've been wearing a mask when you've been out in public at the grocery store or whatever, and you hook it behind your ears, it's like after a little period of time, you're starting to get a little sore from that hanging on your ears. So the strap was developed to hook onto the straps of that mask. It adjusts tension for one, but it also takes that weight off your ears. And we've all had times where we're wearing sunglasses or something that doesn't take much to irritate your ears. And you think of these people working on the front lines in the hospitals wearing these masks for 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour longer shifts. It's a lot of wear on your ears and your body parts. And these we can pump out, by the hundreds very quickly because it's a simple design.
You were talking to me earlier about this very design and how you were working with a customer a while back that was basically nesting them flat on the build bed, but then you showed them a way that you could actually stack them. And
yeah, with the HP system, it's relatively easy. It's a powdered bed system, so we can pack that entire cube of a 15 by 11 inch by 15 inch block with all of these parts. On the Mark Forge, we had a customer contact us and say, I can only get 4 of them on the print bed at a time. And that's great, but I have to keep pulling parts and starting the next job. Can I stack these? So we came up with the solution of, just stack them with a little bit of a gap, save them as a single file, send them to the printer. It'll put support between them that you'll have to remove, but then I can put in a 5-hour build, a 15-hour build, overnight build, and not have to be there changing them out to keep running. And it's just basically to remove the support from between them.
Yeah, my experience with that support is just like an accordion, just rips right off.
Quick peel off support. And the trick is you just stack them in CAD, save them as a single file, and send it to the printer as one file.
Pretty cool. That's the kind of stuff that I think Rob's really good at is finding ways to accomplish people's needs using digital manufacturing techniques.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of stuff out there.
Here's another example of some of the efforts that are going on. This one's a personal effort by Scott Woods. He's our technical product manager out of the West Coast. He's out of the Seattle office, and he has a friend who's a nurse who broke her mask and was told to just keep wearing it. It's pretty tough. So he took it on himself to download some open source content and make some modifications that made it print better on the technologies that he's using. He's a he's a hobbyist, but he does own like 6 of these, Rob. That's
Well,
maybe
he's
borderline.
a serious hobbyist.
Yeah, that might be a bit of obsessive hobbyist, but I
Or
like
it's yeah, or it's, yeah. But it's good. It's good. We see this all the time too, where this type of local home, hobbyist type stuff is being able to, make some strides in here too and help people out. It's fantastic.
So he printed, a number of these and then handed them out. And a little bit later, actually, I forgot, inside the GoToMeeting Manager, there's a handout that we prepared with just a few links on different ways that you can get involved. We'll tell you more about these, but if you want to download that right now, go right ahead and do so. But one of the links in there is to Scott's project. He works with the technical communication products. So one of those is a tool that generates inspection reports out of SolidWorks and really streamlines that process. Another one is called Composer that generates technical documentation, things like instruction manuals, work instructions, assembly instructions, that kind of thing. It basically creates scalable vector images. So that's sort of the holy grail of line drawings, where you can scale them up as large or as small as you need them. And that works off of CAD geometry from a number of different systems. So it allows technical documentation to be designed in parallel with the design process. So Scott used those tools to generate some instruction manuals, and that's all included in that link that we'll give you in the handout section. Similar, but different print technology are the masks that you can see down here. Now, this has this clip-in filter that can be changed, so it enables you to keep reusing these. And these were printed on the HP system, which is known for printing high volumes. It's a fast 3D printer that has a pretty large build space. It's a powder-based fusion technology, but we printed all of these very rapidly using the HP machine.
Yeah, this is probably the fastest 3D printer you'll find on the market today. Those masks were built up in the Seattle office, I believe. This came in from a customer request also saying, we need masks for people. We've got this design and we fit a filter into them. What's nice about it is as the filter changes, that mask design could be changed to accommodate a different size filter or a different type of filter.
Oh, pretty neat. This is really cool, I thought.
This is probably one of the coolest ones I've seen. This one came to us through Boston Scientific here in Minneapolis. They approached us to see if we could help them with this project. It's kind of cool because it's an off-the-shelf snorkel mask. It's something already made. The filter on the top you can see is an off-the-shelf filter. So what do? You need to hook part A to part B. You make an adapter. It's simple. It's just a design to make those two fit. People that saw Apollo 13, the movie, right? They pull out the box of parts and say, this is what we have. We need to fit this square filter onto this round hole. What are we going to do? That's beautiful for additive. That's exactly what they had to do here, is how do we adapt a off-the-shelf snorkel mask to an off-the-shelf type filter? And it's just a simple, adapter on there. So this fits beautifully into additive. When this came to us, we did the first couple prototypes on the HP machines. They were running their own prototypes on their additive machines that they had in-house. We came up with, a few different sizes, kind of going back to one of the earlier discussions we've had is how do we get this to fit? We made 5 different variations of this part and printed them all in the same build so they could check fit on different variations. At the same time we were doing this, they built a mold. They said their mold department just knocked it out of the park, and they were building a mold at the same time, but it needed to be validated beforehand. So we delivered 250 of these to them. I built over a weekend. It gets them into production if they need before that mold's put onto line. So, if you look here, it says that they currently have 1,500 units on hand. Their target deployment's 50,000 units. To make that many fittings, a mold is a beautiful piece for that. But to get to that point, it's just as easy for us to be able to print these and get that bridge to tooling so that they can get to these kinds of volumes down the road if they need to.
That's pretty common in manufacturing, Rob, from what I've seen, where companies will oftentimes create what they call soft tooling, so short run injection mold tools that allow them to get a number of parts out in the field, get some testing, get some experience with it, make adjustments on that next hard tool that then they might make millions and millions of parts. But using this technology, we can kind of we actually get faster results. You know, the speed is amazing. Like, I think it's just so cool that I can come to you and like in an afternoon have parts, like real plastic parts.
Yeah, we were producing prototypes overnight. They'd come to us by the end of the day. I'd start the job up in the morning. I'd come in and clean them, and we're delivering them. Here too, another CD transaction. I pull up outside their building, open the trunk. They walk out, pick the parts out, say thanks, and we're on our way. So we're making it all work.
It's pretty cool. You know, the other neat thing I think about this this idea is it has the shield and the mask all built into one, and these things are relatively comfortable. I actually got to use one of these snorkeling one time, and you know, I was out there for hours and had, you know, no ill effects.
Yeah, and when you look at the commercials that are on right now with the medical workers with the marks on their face from their masks, they're wearing these things all day long. You know, it's got to be horrible, right? It's a lot of wear on your skin. What's nice with this too is this is sterilizable, it's reusable. The filter cartridges just pop out, a new cartridge pops in. I believe this mask can be run through an autoclave. So if you can sterilize it and reuse it, it's way more valuable than, like you said, the one nurse that broke her mask and was told, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to deal with it. Well, here we can reuse these over and over. It's a fantastic application.
Totally, the Pneuma mask, new mask. You know, we are involved in a number of other efforts, of course, but unfortunately, due to the nature of our business, a lot of this stuff remains confidential. It's kind of a shame, Rob. Like, I think some of the all-time coolest things that I've ever got to do at work or in my career in general, I can't share with folks outside of our organization because we take confidentiality of our clients quite seriously. But know that there are a number of things that we're working on that we're excited that maybe in the future we can share with you.
Yep. Tim, is that Bigfoot on there? It sure looks like Bigfoot.
Yeah, next slide.
Okay, maybe we shouldn't talk about that. Okay, got it.
I wanted to also just pause a second and talk about, you know, why 3D printing has gotten so much exposure during this time. You know, I know it's a relatively new well, is it new, Rob? I mean,
no, it's been around for 30 years.
Right.
So it's catching fire. It's been catching fire for years, and sad to say, this might be one of those instances in history where this may accelerate 3D printing just because of these types of activities that are going on.
So while I think, you know, you and I'm certainly a fan of conventional manufacturing techniques, and specifically like injection molding. I mean, I think we should be putting those in science museums and inspiring kids to, you know, go down a path of toolmaker as a career. I think it's an awesome thing. I mean, they're moving mechanical marbles that make components. If you like puzzles, you know, mold design might be your jam. But as it relates to 3D printing, what are some of the advantages that make this stuff so attractive right now?
Well, there's a couple things in there, right? In the instance of this picture here, robotic arms, right? End of arm tooling. 3D printing is built for this type of application. I always kind of point to people and say, you know, these robots, they'll do whatever you tell them. If you put the right tool in their hand, program them, they'll do anything. So that same robot can do multiple jobs if you just put a different tool in its hand. I can design a tool that fits the end of that arm for picking parts out of a bin. I can put a part on the end of that thing that would hold it while it's being machined. It's a quick change out. It makes, you know, the 3D printers being so quick and being able to get different iterations, it plays beautifully into this kind of end of arm tooling. I love these stories when you see them on the news of Ford and GM and these different companies swapping over manufacturing, because the trick is how fast can I change a plant over to something new? If you saw the movie Ford versus Ferrari, they point at the plant and they said, see that building out there? Back in World War II, we were building airplanes in there. We swapped the plant over. And I look at it going, what would it take in the 40s to change a manufacturing floor over? It's all manufacturing. It's making parts and putting them together, but completely different products. Here, we can change that tooling very quickly, whether it's a holding fixture, whether it's an end of arm tool. It's quick. If I need some end use parts and I can print them, I can turn that factory over very quickly, which I think is a huge advantage in today's world with this crisis going on.
You know, another, I think, advantage that it has compared to, you know, some of the conventional manufacturing techniques is flexibility. You know, you can have a build bed with a diverse mix of parts that's completely different the next time. There's no need to continue to do the same part like we find with conventional assembly line work, where it's really developed to build one specific object.
Exactly. One of the things we've had come through us is like custom masks, taking a 3D scanner, scanning the doctor or the nurse or the medical provider, and making a custom mask that fits them. It's more comfortable. So if I've got 20 doctors in the facility, I scan them, I can make 20 different custom masks for 20 different doctors in the same build in the same amount of time. So I'm not having to make a mold that is only going to be used for that one mask or a handful of masks for that doctor. I can mix that up. And then let's say they get a bunch of snorkel masks in and they need an adapter. I just throw a few adapters in with those other masks. I can mix and match any way I want. It's another one of the beauties of additive manufacturing.
I think speed is another huge advantage, right? The ability to do very fast, whether it's prototyping or even, in the case of emergency situations where these things might actually be used, for end use purposes.
Yep, I can turn parts overnight in a lot of cases. In some of the smaller things, like those headbands, I think they're like 20 minutes a piece to print. So we can turn stuff really quick. And when you look at, the kind of one of the things with additive is everybody's kind of felt, if they're not involved with it, that it's so slow, it's not real production based. Today's world is completely different. We're getting faster and faster. We're producing machines that are able to run large quantities very quickly. We're maybe still not going to hit that 50,000 parts off an injection mold, but there's a lot of times where the time it would take to make that mold, we could probably have run the production on a 3D printer.
Yeah, totally. I think there's some risk reduction that can be gained from digital manufacturing. No need for all of the excess inventory that, if we're only making the one part that we might wind up dealing with, testing before production, and knowing that that part's going to behave the way you want it to because you've already tested it out.
Right. We go back to the snorkel adapters again. If that mask isn't available, it's sold out. What do? You can get another mask from another manufacturer, but your fitting doesn't fit it. You just design a fitting for the new mask and you drop that in the printer. You're not building up inventory with a mold. You might get caught with that risk of making 50,000 of these, expecting to put that out. And I'm hoping they put that many out because it's a fantastic application. But what happens if it dries up at some point and you're sitting on 20,000 parts that you didn't need, or the masks aren't available anymore? So I can make them in quantities that I need to keep my production running without having to build up excess inventory. And then I've also got that digital inventory. So I can send that file around the world and have them made locally and not have to have a stockpile in one place.
You pretty much dovetailed right into the next point that we wanted to make about the advantages of supply chain. So that that digital inventory, that ability to build on demand when you need it and turn it off when you don't. Right. And then the other part that we're seeing, and we're seeing this within our own organization, is the way we can distribute this manufacturing across our different, in our case, our digital manufacturing labs.
Right. I just saw a message come through just before we started the webinar with a facility in Chicago looking for some parts. Came into our West Coast office, so they're sending that this way. Tonight I'll be building parts to be sending off to Chicago. It's just a beautiful piece that we don't have to be stocking these and shipping them. We can make them more local, and a lot of times right in the area that they're being distributed.
Very cool. So we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the 3D printing applications that you may not have thought of. A lot of us see this PPE, the personal protection equipment, on the news and in the media, and certainly, it's part of it. But there's a lot of other things that happen behind the scenes that you may or may not be aware of. Before we get into that, Rob, I wanted to do this earlier, but I neglected to do so. I wanted to know from the audience, how many of you are currently using 3D printing? Whether that's at home, in the office, or through outsource. So let me just launch a quick poll here, and if you could answer for me, I sure would appreciate it. Do you or your company currently use 3D printing? All right, looks like, wow.
It's good.
Almost 90% of the audience owns a 3D printer.
So what's funny about that, and interesting and amazing, is if we would have asked that same question maybe 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen that response. Shows you how much this is being adopted out there as a manufacturing tool being used around the world.
No, that's cool. I'm going to just share that with everybody in the audience here. You can see we had about 80% of you own a 3D printer, another 11% outsource some 3D print work, and only 11% aren't currently doing any 3D printing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
That's great.
Beautiful.
Okay. You know, one of the things I was curious from the audience is ways that you're using 3D printing as it relates to this COVID-19 fight. And if you have interesting things that you're not seeing in the presentation, I'd urge you to put them in the questions area, even if it's not a question. It's not Jeopardy. You don't have to form it as a question. Just pop it in there. We'd love to share that with the other folks on the line. Maybe there's some interesting items that you're up to. So here's some of the items that Rob and the 3D printing team have been up to. Trim guides. So this is like a cutting tool. Well, we mentioned end of arm tooling, and we've got some pretty impressive examples of that to show you. Mold tooling, whether that's vacuum forming or urethane casting or otherwise. Fixtures. Boy, Rob, I've built a lot of fixtures in my career. It's amazing how many designs are just to hold some other thing during a manufacturing process. And this is a really great fit for 3D printing, just the speed that we can create these, the strength in some cases, makes it a natural fit. Replacement parts, we kind of mentioned that, but we'll show you some other examples. Adapters and adapters for adapters.
Adapters for adapters.
And trim seals. There's some new materials like thermoplastic urethane that can be nice and flexible and conform to the body. So one of the things we mentioned were trim guides. And while this isn't part of the COVID-19 effort, I wanted to share it because it's an amazing little example of a cutting tool that probably would have been pretty dang expensive to create otherwise, but very easy to create 3D printing. So I've actually got this thing right here, and it's just a piece of corrugated tubing. Right? But the way this trim guide works is it snaps right into the corrugation, and then there's a blade that runs in here, and then you simply just rotate this around, and it creates the cut. It's pretty clever. Pretty neat little example.
Yeah, it's one of those fantastic designs by one of our partners out there and customers, DI Labs. What's nice about that is they're actually using the piece of corrugated part, as the guide for the tool to travel on. Yeah. So how ingenious is that, right? The guide piece is already there. It's a fantastic application when you're cutting and trimming.
That's awesome. I've tried to cut those before, and they're a little dangerous with the utility knife.
Yeah, exactly.
End of arm tooling, insanely popular with it when it comes to 3D printing. You can print parts that conform to the part that you're picking up. Some of the fixturing can actually be done that way as well. What's neat about this example is some of the structures actually acting as the pneumatic line. You can see the little flexible bit here at the end where we need that, but so the support structure is actually containing the pneumatics. Here you can see other examples. These examples down here are pretty clever, Rob. I'm going to try to zoom in on those. Let's see if we can get a closer look at that. Yeah.
So the one in the bottom is really ingenious, I think.
I like both of these. So I'm going to talk about the one on the left, Rob, and maybe you can share some details on the one on the right. The one on the left there is just basically, it's a little pinch grabber, but it was printed as a single object. So again, we've got the structure carrying the pneumatics. And then that spirally bit, as the pressure increases, it forces that to actually close. So here the entire mechanism was 3D printed. The conventional gripper like that may be a collection of a number of different parts, so it has to be. But with 3D printing, in some cases, we can combine quite a number of parts to create this new, novel, clever design.
Exactly. The one next to it, I don't know if this is the one. I think it probably is. We saw this at the AMUG show probably about a year ago, a little over a year ago.
Hey, Rob, what's an AMUG show for those that aren't?
Yeah, the Additive Manufacturers User Group. It takes place every year, end of March, beginning of April, where a lot of manufacturers, users of 3D printers all get together. It's a great networking, channel to get in and meet other people that are doing the same thing or learning what people are doing with their 3D printers. It's a fantastic organization, fantastic event. If you haven't been there, I'd be looking at it for next year. So one of the things they do in there is a design challenge, and I saw a part like this. That's why I'm thinking this is probably the same one. What's interesting about it is it's hard to see in the picture there, but each of those suction cups is hooked to like a coil spring running up to the part, and then the little bowed out pieces are 3 loops on the side that also work as a spring. So this is almost a self-aligning tool. So when it goes down to pick up a part, it has the ability to compress a little bit up and down, but it also has the ability to flex side to side and conform to whatever part they're picking up. And I'm looking at it going, wow, what a ingenious little way of developing a spring. And it's all built into one part.
You know, this is one of my passions for 3D printing is all the new and novel, you know, whether it's compliant mechanisms like this, but just what folks are doing with this stuff it's just so amazing. You know, part of the reason I follow the industry is for, you know, these kinds of advances.
Yeah, put it in the right hands, and these guys go off with their imagination, and it's like, oh my God, look at what they're doing. It's just kind of fun, right? And it's simple. It's just somebody come up with this great idea. I love it. It's absolutely incredible. So here's one that's vacuum forming. So we've had some success with vacuum forming. If you notice, the picture on the left is basically just an inside view of that part with the holes in it to be able to pull vacuum through it. But the main reason why I'm bringing this up is, you know, when we're looking at those masks, you know, the set of masks with the filter in the front of them, there's times where we can print those. We can print them in quantities. We can print them fast. But if we're looking for, you know, thousands and thousands of these masks, people could most likely be thinking of injection molding or vacuum forming this. With the Metal X systems out there, we can make metal parts now for injection molding. We can print the mold. We're seeing that taking off right now. And vacuum forming, like this application here, I could vacuum form those masks fairly quickly, and I can vacuum form them out of a material that's probably already approved by the FDA for skin contact, sterilizable, all the other things that go into approving a medical piece like that. Why not vacuum form them if you're doing quantities and it's a certain material that you need? Urethane molding kind of falls into the same boat, right? If we're doing custom masks for doctors, why not do that out of a urethane mold and just fit it right to their face?
Yeah, pretty neat stuff how we can build, you know, tools to support conventional manufacturing, and that has some of its own sets of advantages. So I mentioned fixturing and work holding, you know, whether that's soft jaws that you can see down here or fixtures that hold complex parts for, you know, secondary machining ops, real common application. This one was pretty neat. It's a lifting device that was, you know, made off of, this was the Mark Forge. So that's a nylon part with embedded continuous, probably carbon fiber to give it a significant increase in strength. Here's a shot. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, no, if you look at that too, you know, we can build parts with the right geometry using plastic with carbon fiber infill. It'll get us up to the strength of aluminum. So when we're looking at these lifting fixtures like that, you know, by adding carbon fiber into the inside of them, we can make those extremely stiff and strong.
If you've ever been to, you know, one of our digital manufacturing labs, or maybe to a trade show where we or Mark Forge is at, you'll see this brake lever always displayed because it's such an amazing example of the additional stiffness that the carbon fiber gives you. You know, it just doesn't do it justice without actually putting it in your hands and trying to bend it. But when you compare this to the non-reinforced part, like, so much stiffer. Pretty amazing.
And when we're looking at some of this stuff, if it's a part that has impact to it, we can put Kevlar in there instead of carbon fiber. We can put fiberglass in there. So we've got 4 different materials we can put inside that part, you know, depending on what the application is that it's being used for.
That's right, and not only different materials, but different ways that we can align that fiber. This is a concentric method, but you can also do it, you know, where you've got, you know, continuous strands this way and that across the part.
Yep, an isotropic laying inside of there. And then on top of it, there's also the metal machine. So if we are looking for stainless steel or copper or a tool steel, we can print that just as easily as we can print this brake lever. What I love about additive, I tell everybody every day, is I can't run a mill. I can't run an injection molding machine. Give me a part, I can send it to a printer. It's not hard. And I can create things that I don't have the skills for. those skills are highly, you know, skilled
Valuable.
positions. Yeah, valuable. But in this case, I can do this and get a good part out of it without having all these extra skills.
This was a really cool development. Medtronic released a set of design files, actually two sets. One was specifications, but they actually released the 3D models that were developed in SolidWorks for this ventilator. So you can download this if you want to take a crack at designing things as part of your work for the effort. So Rob and I just kind of looked at this, and a lot of these things, like, you know, these hose fittings and plastic components are things I see you printing all the time. We didn't get the time to go through this thing completely, and certainly there's parts that we wouldn't print, but I think you'd find that, you know, we'd be able to print quite a number of the different components inside the ventilator here.
Right, and if you're looking at this, this might be a low quantity, local piece that somebody wants to build. They're not going to go and have molds made for these most likely because of the quantities that they're in. So rather than, you know, going through all the tooling, why not just print some of these parts and get them onto the machine locally?
Pretty neat. Let's see here.
So this one's interesting. So this is an adapter fixture. We were talking about fixturing. So this is the adapter that's being used on the snorkel masks. When I had to do 250 of these, if you understand powder bed type systems, the machine is going to lay down powder. It's going to print parts in it. In the case of HP, we're laying a fusing agent down with inkjet heads. The fusing agent into the powder absorbs extra energy from the UV light and literally melts that layer, fuses it to the one below it. So the system is extremely fast. I can lay a little over an inch to inch and a half of powder in an hour on that system. In a balance mode, I can go faster in fast mode. So then the trick comes is when I clean these parts, I have to take them into a bead blaster and bead blast them. It's a simple process, but 260 of them is going to take me quite a bit of time. So what I did is I figured, let's speed this up. I went off and designed this fixture using the geometry of their part, doing Boolean subtractions from the part that I designed. I threw that part onto our marked forge machine to print while I was printing the nozzles in the other systems in the HP system. So by the time my parts came out, all I had to do is pull my fixture off the marked forge. This, I did a little study. This basically cut my cleaning time down to a third. Most of the time was just putting the parts onto the little fixture. The spraying time was minimal. So it's amazing how much time this saved me just by creating a fixture.
Hey, Rob, did you create that right away, or did you clean a few parts and then?
I think I did the first 20 parts, the prototype parts that we ran, and realized that if I've got to ramp this up 10 times, 20 times, it's going to be a bit of time standing here. So this is just one of those things that I've done this in the past with other parts over the years. And then you forget about it a little bit until you need it again. And then you go, well, this is really simple. I just have to draw this part and take the actual CAD model into it and do a Boolean subtraction. So what's unique about this too is I put them on one direction. So they fit, say the top picture there is the nozzle part down. I clean that side of the part. Now some of the parts down in the fixture, so I wouldn't have had that clean. So I flipped the fixture over and mount it to the top side. So I basically made two fixtures in one and spray the opposite side, which is then cleaning the part that would have been down in the fixture on the first half. So it's simple and it saves a huge amount of time.
That's pretty clever, pretty clever.
Sometimes I get it right. I'm finding ways to make it smarter and easier, not harder and more time consuming.
I like it. I like it. So I saw, a couple of things from our partners, both HP and Markforged. Nasal swabs, custom fit masks, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you're seeing this start to come out there, right? The nasal swabs can be a shortage out there, so there's people making these. They're quick, they're simple. The picture on the left there is Markforged's sample of this, that they're printing them by the ton. They're wrapped with a material on the end in order to collect the sample, and then they're able to package them. The mask on the right-hand side is another example of, here's this filter that they can screw onto it. And if they get a different filter attachment, they just change the connection on this. A little more comfortable than a regular, say, N95 mask. And the filter in there could be an N95 filter even on it. So
looks like there's kind of like, maybe it's a TPU or a.
Yeah, it could be TPU.
Material.
It could just, it could be a nylon material. The other thing that when I see this, the other thing that comes to mind too is when we're talking vacuum forming, we have to package this stuff. And a lot of times it may have to be packaged in a sterile environment. So we've seen applications where we make a vacuum forming tool for packaging that they'll actually vacuum form that piece, sterilize it, whatever, put their parts in it, seal that up and ship it. So in some cases like those nasal swabs and stuff, it wouldn't be a crazy application to create a vacuum forming tool just for packaging.
We saw some of these splitters basically, right? And that allows like a couple of folks to potentially utilize one ventilator.
Yep, as the ventilator shortage come out, you started to see this all over the internet where people were trying to come up with ways to split a ventilator into multiple patients. So you're seeing these designs popping up out there. It's pretty unique. There was I think you were telling me too about it, that you saw it, Tim, of a company in Europe that actually brought their printer in.
Oh, right, yeah, out of
made
Italy.
The prototypes. Yeah, in Italy. So they brought their small desktop printer in and printed their prototypes to get the thing up and going so they could fit them right there at the site where the ventilators were.
I'd heard it. The guy showed up with his computer with CAD and a 3D printer and actually modeled up, printed out right there in front of everybody at the hospital.
Yep, it's that efficient, really.
It wasn't a splitter valve, but it was another valve. Pretty amazing. I'll bet the doctors were impressed with that.
And what real quick side note too, what we're finding is there's more and more of these medical facilities that have printing in their facilities. So it's not totally unique to them or foreign to them to be able to do this, but every now and then you'll see this stuff coming in there. But yeah, we're seeing, especially most of the major hospitals out there, they've got 3D printing capabilities on hand right in their facilities now.
So we've seen a lot of ventilator designs, whether it's the one that was released by Medtronic, or some of these. This is an Ambu Bag. Is that what we've learned?
Yep. So they're just taking the regular Ambu Bag that you'd find in a regular medical facility or in an ambulance, making a way to squeeze it. And the last thing you want is to hand that to the patient and say, keep squeezing. So here we've got a machine that's real simple. The one on the side down there, bottom left corner, was University of Minnesota's. It's kind of funny because they used a toolbox to start up with their prototype. They're now putting this through into more of a production type machine. But to prove out the concept on this, they did a quick mock-up using an Ambu Bag. And you look at the MIT one, it's pretty much the same thing. There's printed parts on there, but it's just taking an off-the-shelf item and modifying it to be able to automate it. It's fantastic.
So yeah, you can get involved by designing solutions, whether that's coming up with new ventilators or maybe open sourcing this Medtronic ventilator. I guess Ferrari and Lamborghini are creating this extremely fast ventilator, I would guess.
Yep. So here again, we go back to people that normally make cars. Well, why can't they make medical equipment? It's manufacturing. It's just changing what you're doing and having the flexibility to make parts that wouldn't go on a car but would go on a ventilator. It's incredible.
All right. So I wanted to know from the audience, if you would get involved. If given an opportunity, would you participate? So let me launch a quick poll here and see if I can get your feedback. And this is just whether or not you or your company would get involved if given a chance. If somebody made it easy for you. Oh, that's awesome. Seen a lot of yeses.
Is that just incredible when you think about coming together like that?
All right, I think we've got some votes here. I might as well share this because the good news is 100% of the folks that voted said that they absolutely would get involved. So while I wouldn't consider what I'm about to show you a comprehensive list of all possible ways to get involved, here's some, there's probably unlimited ways to get involved, but here's some of the things that we've seen out there. HP has put together a link, and again, don't try to write these down. Just head right over to the Go-To Meeting Manager window, expand out the handout section, and click on the 3D printing ways to get involved PDF, and you won't have to type these links, you can just click on them. So HP has an effort. There's a number of parts available to download and instructions on ways that companies can get involved. We see something similar from Mark Forged. Rob, maybe you can talk about the new mask.
Yep, so that's the link to the Boston Sci Stanford, snorkel mask. There's links on there to donate if you want to donate money to it, if you want to offer up assistance on it. They've got video on there of how this is being used. It's a nice website. They've done a good job putting that together. And what I like about that is it's a collaboration of a lot of companies, all in the same boat, all trying to help, and they've all come together to share resources to put things like this together.
That next link is a group of, I think it's mainly hobbyists, but I want to say the last time I looked, Rob, there was like 5,000 folks around the country with 3D printers that put their name on the list volunteering to print designs based on need and demand. That's pretty cool. The next one is Scott Woods. You saw him early on with the blue mask that he printed in his home workshop. He's got instructions and models that you can download and get started and donate these. And then the last link I've provided there is Medtronic, and it's the link to their open files. You do have to register. It's pretty painless. It took me about 5 seconds to get my hands on the model and download those. Pretty neat to be able to peer into a design like this. I mean, it's something I see often, Rob, where I'm actually, able to get my hands on customer models, generally for troubleshooting purposes, but I never can share them with anybody. So this is a set that you can actually look at. These are native SolidWorks files, so you can actually look at the tree and see, how they're constructing these things, what's all in it. There's a lot to be learned when you get a data set like this. Actually, I found it interesting just reading about the specifications, the specs that go into medical development. There's a lot of work that goes into all of that.
There is, and what's really comforting in all of this stuff is you look at a company like that, like you said earlier, IP. We can't talk about some of the cool stuff that we work with every single day because people don't want us to share that. We understand that, security is incredibly important to them and to us. And here's a company like Medtronic that's openly sharing a design so that anybody in the world can possibly make this thing. It's amazing when I see that. It's just so overwhelming.
It took me about 5 seconds from seeing the link to entering my information and then downloading the files and having a crack at it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So, I wanted to wrap up maybe just thanking all the folks who are actually out on the front lines, doctors, nurses, first responders, folks who are out there physically helping the effort. And then also thank all of those who are contributing and building parts to help these folks in this critical time that we're in.
You look at all of the help and how everybody's coming together. This is a tough time for everybody, and yet at the same time, you're seeing everybody come together and collaborating.
Oh man, totally. Like across organizations and cultures. Yeah.
I would bet you haven't seen this in history before, especially worldwide, with people sharing and coming together. Thank you for your time today to tune in and see what's been going on out there.